My name is Johanna, and I work for UW Extension, and my role is to primarily help manage the Wisconsin Stewardship Plan project. And so, as a part of that project, we are trying to support folks that have recently got a forest stewardship plan or maybe in the process of getting a forest stewardship plan to then be able to actually implement their plans. And I know that part of that process sometimes includes hiring someone to come out and work on your land. Um, so, um, yeah, I do also think there might be some folks that haven't gotten a forest stewardship plan. If that's something you're interested in, feel free to reach out to me after this webinar. But I also have a couple of colleagues here from UW Extension, Keith and Tony. Do y'all just want to say hi quick?
Sure, I can go. My name is Keith Phelps. I'm out of the Winnebago County Extension offices, working primarily in Northeast Wisconsin. Currently doing a lot of programs to promote healthy forests, resilient forests, thinking about ways that we can promote biodiversity and better kind of structural composition of our forests in addition to forest carbon markets.
All right. Hey, everybody. My name is Tony Johnson. I'm an extension forestry educator. I work out of the Horicon DNR office in southeastern Wisconsin. I do the maple syrup program for UW Extension. I also do agroforestry program in addition to a lot of private landowner outreach. I'm really excited to be on the call again tonight, and I'm going to be recording this meeting. So if you've got your camera on, you're going to be part of the recording that we're going to share on our YouTube channel later on for the participants in this webinar series. And then also, if you got any technical issues, feel free to enter those into the chat. I just updated my name, so you'll see Tony Johnson. You can either direct message me if you've got some kind of a issue with Zoom, or else just feel free to enter questions like that into the chat, and I can try to help out in the background. But otherwise, I'm gonna turn my camera off and record and hang out in the back and enjoy the show. So thanks again.
Yeah, and we have a few visitors with us that'll be on our panel, but I'm going to wait and let them introduce themselves when they can talk to you a little bit more about what they have to offer. So you will meet them later. So just quickly, the way it's going to go is, and in a minute here, I'm going to do a quick poll to see who is here and uh, yeah, just to see who is here and when you might be thinking about hiring someone. And then after that, I'm going to go through just quickly, some good rules of thumb to think about when you're trying to hire someone. And then after that, I will pass it over to our speakers and let them tell you about what they do. Um, so Keith, do you want to put up the quick poll? So if you can, just take a minute. We're just asking about if you've ever hired someone before and if how soon you are trying to hire someone. Okay, so it looks like our responses have kind of, oh, we still got a couple more in there. Okay, so it looks like it slowed down, so I'm going to end it. But it does look like um, we've hit the right audience. So it looks like we don't have a ton of experience hiring someone, which is great. We're hoping we can help with that tonight. And it does look like most of you are thinking about in the near future looking to hire someone. So that's good for us to know. Awesome. Thank you for participating. Okay, so, oops. Keith, do you want to end the poll? I don't know if it's popping up for you all. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen quickly. Okay, so just quickly, I am going to talk to you a little bit about the process and maybe some things you should think about when you are first looking to hire someone. And I'm going to be going through the price acronyms because here at Extension we love acronyms. And so I thought I would just share this one with you all. But I do want to talk about the fact that, when you're doing this process and when you're looking to hire someone, you should feel comfortable asking questions. You should feel comfortable talking to them and trying to better understand their experience, trying to better understand what they have to offer, because you want to find the person that will help you be successful at whatever you're trying to do on your woodlands. So the first thing that you can ask for is professional qualifications. Many of our natural resource professionals have certain qualifications that they need to do their work or that make them better at doing their job. And so it's not unreasonable to ask that question about, what kind of certifications do you have? I know a lot of the foresters that have been working on the Forest Stewardship Plan project are cooperating foresters. That's a specific certification that requires a little extra work to get. And so, that can be one of your first questions that you ask folks. Another good rule of thumb is to ask for references. That's not an unreasonable thing. When we go to most job interviews or have jobs, we expect that people will ask for our references. And so, a lot of times that could be asking to speak to someone who's worked with the person you're thinking about hiring in the past. That might mean a letter that they can share with you. Or in some cases, if you're lucky, it might mean you get to go out and see a property and see the work that they've done. So you can get a sense of what it'll be like for you. Okay. Another important thing is to ask about insurance. It's important to understand if the person you're working with has the insurance that you need. And usually they can, or they should be able to provide some kind of documentation to show you, what kind of insurance they have. You just want to make sure that everything is covered and that, if anything happens, hopefully it won't, you're ready to go. And then also, it's good to ask for a cost estimate, especially in writing if possible. That just makes sure that everybody is on the same page about what things are going to happen and what the potential cost is going to be. There's always things that come up sometimes, but you really want to kind of understand what those potential costs could be. So even if they give you a number, try to understand, is there a possibility if it could be a little bit more, a little bit less? You just want to know. And then you can also ask about their experience. We have a lot of great foresters here in Wisconsin, and great people who do this work. But sometimes they have expertise in things, and don't do other things as often. And so, you know, ask people, ask questions, ask about, when was the last time they did a similar project to what you're trying to do, or talk to them about it. You want to make sure that you find the right person for the project that you're trying to do. Um, so yeah, asking questions is a good thing. And then lastly, there is the option, if you are extra worried, there are places where you can look up and see if there's been any complaints against anybody. But again, this is a process of just getting to know people, and this is if you have specific concerns. The other thing I wanted to show you all, and I have to do this in the right order. Um, so if you were with us last week, you did hear Jeff talked a little bit about the forestry assistance locator. And so he talked about how if you're looking for your local DNR forester, you can use this to look for them. But this is also something you can do to try to help you find a forester, a private forester that will work in your area. We do have someone here on the call today who works for a restoration company. And so they might not necessarily be on this list. So this isn't the only option for finding people, but this is just one of the options. And it also really depends on what you're trying to do on your property as well. Um, so the way you use this is you can just use you search cooperating forester. A cooperating forester is a private forester that has a special designation with the DNR. As a part of that, they agree to use sustainable forestry practices as well as do a little bit of continuing education every year. They have some classes that they take. And so the list that I'm showing you is just a list of cooperating foresters. Um, but yeah, so I am currently in Dane County. So if you're looking for somebody, you would go to Dane County. And then let's say that I am interested in doing a timber sale. Then I would just go down here and that's how you can search. Also, you do have the option of if you're looking for a specific certification. So let's say you wanted to join the managed forest law and you needed a plan that was specifically written by a certified plan writer. That is something that you can search for as well. But when I search Dane County and I search for timber sale, you can see that there's a lot of options that come up. And so this is where you kind of have to start making calls and start having conversations, start talking to people that maybe have gotten work done, um, and start doing some research from there. And not all of them are going to be this long. For example, if you are looking for someone to do a carbon program, because maybe you're interested, or a carbon assessment, because maybe you're interested in a carbon program, that, for example, is a shorter list for Dane County. So, so yeah, this is just one resource to look for how to hire a forester. So I am going to stop sharing my screen. And so from here, I am going to start passing off to our speakers. So today we have three speakers, and they're in different parts of the state and offer different services. And so my hope is that by hearing these different experiences, you'll be able to get a sense of how the process will go. You know, there might be some variation, but you'll have a starting place at least. So of my speakers, does anyone really want to go first? Otherwise, I can just pick someone. Okay. Evan, why don't you go first if you're um, ready to go?
Excellent. Yeah, no problem. Thanks for the handoff, Johanna. Um, my name is Evan Nelson, and I own Good Oak Ecological Services here in Madison, Wisconsin. I've worked for Good Oak for 8 years and recently acquired the company last November. So that's a little bit of my background here. Good Oak specializes in ecological restoration and sustainable landscaping out of our Madison, Wisconsin office. Our goal is to restore native habitat and native plants to the landscape wherever possible. We work in prairies, savannas, woodlands, wetlands, stormwater facilities, and residential properties to kind of bring native plants, native species back to the landscape. Some of our services include invasive brush removal, timber stand improvement, weed management, such as herbicide application, mowing, and mechanical removal. Prescribed fire is a really big part of our services. Native plant establishment, native tree planting, native shrub planting, and then management planning. And some of our sustainable landscaping services include pollinator gardens, rain gardens, and edible landscaping. So Johanna queued us up with a few questions here, so I will kind of make my way through the list of questions I have. So what does our fee structure look like, and what do additional costs that landowners need to be thinking about? And one of the biggest things that we see as contractors and urge landowners to think about is ongoing maintenance expense. Things such as brush clearing or seeding or timber stand improvement are a large one-time expense, but asking contractors what long-term maintenance of these activities look like. As a prescribed fire practitioner and active member of the Wisconsin Prescribed Fire Council, I'm a huge proponent of creating fire-dependent systems, as prescribed fire is often the most cost-effective way to manage your property. Of course, this is not applicable everywhere, so be sure to talk with your contractor about what maintenance looks like and what some general costs for that are. So year over year, how are you going to maintain the practices that you've put in place, and how are you going to get your forest structure to the place that you want it to be? Um, and in our fee structure, so we set up many of our contracts as a fixed cost so that landowners are able to anticipate the total project costs and there aren't any surprises when the final bill arrives. If unforeseen expenses occur, we're sure to communicate with landowners as soon as possible and find a solution that's going to work for all parties. At the end of the day, our goal is to see you manage your land in the most sustainable and effective way possible. So we're going to do everything in our power to reduce costs to make that happen. So what does that contracting process look like? The contracting process looks different from property to property and project to project on those properties. So not every situation is the same, but a few guidelines to follow are setting up management areas, defining goals and objectives, and understanding how that fee structure works within those management areas to reach those goals and objectives. So by following these guidelines, you can better decide what will work best for your contract situation. At Good Oak, we've set up contracts for single services and for projects up to about 3 years in length. Anything outside of 3 years, a lot can happen in 3 years. So it's hard to predict what exactly your woods is necessarily going to look like or what things are going to be needed outside of that 3 year interval. But being in constant contact with your contractor throughout whatever your contract interval is will kind of help get you an idea of where you're going to be once that contract is up and what the next contract might look like. The next question I have is how do you work with subcontractors? So typically when Good Oak is working with subcontractors, we have landowners set up contracts directly with that outside entity. So we're a pretty small team. We employ 16 full-time staff members. So we don't have a lot of ability to have a lot of oversight with subcontractors within our own staff. So we typically find it best to have the landowner set that contract up directly. A good example of that, as was shown, was a cooperating forester or a certified plan writer. So in our 16, 17 people on staff, we don't have a certified plan writer. So we have a list of certified plan writers that we work with on a regular basis that then we can either make a direct introduction for the landowner to that certified plan writer, or they can choose to reach out to that plan writer on their own. So that's typically how that works. As far as actual implementation of the project, Good Oak is pretty well equipped to implement anything that is written by that plan writer. And we can help to inform some of what is written in that plan as long as we're a part of that process. Sometimes we get brought in a little bit too late and say somebody is shooting for some oak woodland and prescribed fire would be a really useful tool. Some plan writers aren't writing fire into their plans, and now all of a sudden prescribed fire is more or less written out of the plan, and we have to take extra steps to get that put back in. So just, bringing everybody into the conversation, which kind of leads into the next question I have of when should woodland owners reach out, and what do project timelines typically look like? So we encourage landowners to reach out as soon as you have an idea of what direction you want to head. Even if you don't have any solid idea, we're happy to come out and help inform you of some options you may have. We can kind of give you some general ideas of cost and timelines to help inform how fast or how slow you want your project to move. And also reaching out to all those entities before a project begins. We hate to see people get 2 or 3 years into a project and realize, oh shoot, I should have reached out to somebody that I need out here in 3 weeks to get a certain part of my project done. Say you need excavation or even a timber harvest, sometimes those can be really hard to set up on a really short notice. So talking to people early and often is typically what we like to see. And one of the things that we see really impacts timelines is landowners' involvement with their own projects. The more landowners are involved, the quicker projects can usually move along. You kind of have more skin in the game, and you can be eyes out there on the ground. So if something changes, you can be in communication with your contractor. We like to tell people, landowners, you're there every day. You're seeing changes as they happen. Us as contractors, we may be out there for one day every 3 months, 6 months, whatever that project timeline looks like. So we're only seeing a really small snapshot in time of your woods or your property that you're seeing every day. So if you're seeing things happen, don't hesitate to reach out and ask questions. If I don't know, if my staff doesn't know, I'm probably going to know somebody who does know. So don't hesitate. Like Johanna said, ask questions. The PRICE acronym is great. It really gives you some guidelines to finding out more about your contractor and what that looks like. So I won't hog anyone else's time, so I will pass it along.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I think we're going to give everybody a chance to kind of talk, and then we'll save all the questions for the end. So if you have questions, just hold on to them for a bit. Okay, Heritage Family Forestry, do you all want to go next?
Yeah, thanks. So my name is Joanna Deligan, and Mike and I own Heritage Family Forestry. We're based in Cable, Wisconsin.
We do more traditional forestry consulting services, so everything from managed forest lot plan writing to forest inventories, timber sales. I'm also a certified arborist, so we do a little bit of work with that. GIS mapping, wildlife habitat improvement, recreational development, you name it. So
Yeah, I'm also a certified tree farm inspector and a technical service provider for the Natural Resource Conservation Service. So a lot of plan writing and a lot of implementing the plans that we write.
mhm. So typical landowner for us usually has 40 acres or better, just to make things economical for a timber sale to get the equipment in there to make everything work. We we work as the landowner's agent through the timber sale process, so we're not affiliated with any mill or any other outside influence in that regard. We work directly for the landowner. Joanna and I are both Association of Consulting Foresters members as well, which yeah, we got to talk to you about, but getting that on the DNR website as well, as just another one of those certifications we carry. It's all made up 100% of consulting foresters like ourselves that um, work independently directly for landowners and yeah, hold ourselves to a higher standard.
If you want to look up more of our services, we do have those all listed on our website. It's www.heritagefamilyforestry.com. So you can see a more comprehensive list there. So you might be wondering what our fee structures are, or if there's any additional cost to the landowner that you should be thinking about. I would say if you have a project that you are looking to implement, give us a call and we can talk you through that. It's really there's so many factors when it comes to forestry projects that it's best to just give us a call and we can um, learn more about the project and go from there. Um, Management plans versus timber sales, forest inventory. We offer a wide variety of services, so case by case, but definitely reach out.
Yeah, and one that we hadn't mentioned as well is, and we're glad to see that, yeah, our name did pop up on that, is forest carbon, but that's that's a growing thing in the state, and we do inventories for that. From those, it can be landowners typically with at least 20 acres, up to we've done them for 100,000 plus acres. So big scale inventories and data collection associated with that, and all the help you need in that regard. Contracting process. So there's two parts. One is a service agreement with us to say you want us to handle all of these steps for you, whether it's writing a management plan, doing an inventory, doing a timber sale, those kind of things, or treating an individual tree for emerald ash borer or oak wilt if it's in our area. Once we've got that executed, then we put you in our queue for actually going out there and doing the work. We complete all the marking and everything ahead of time, and then next step marking is if we're setting up a timber sale for you. So we might mark all the trees that go, or we might have all the trees in a certain area go. We make a map, we cruise it, so we have the volume that's there. We come up with the value, and then we put it out for bids, or we can direct market it to contractors.
I'm sure, I mean, this is a Wisconsin Stewardship Plan project presentation, so maybe most of you have already gotten a forest management plan and you're really wondering what to do next. How do you implement it? So yeah, that's kind of where we are, to come out there if we haven't been out there already to look at it and
That's where the rubber meets the road.
yeah, really, it really does. So how do we work with subcontractors if necessary? Do you want to handle that one with if it's a timber sale project?
Yeah, and I just wanted to say too, on the contracting front, it's we handle all the contracting between the landowner and the subcontractor, who would be a logging operator that we know and work with and can stand behind their quality of work, their workmanship, payments, all of that. So um yeah, that's something basically the landowner and the contractor needs to sign, and we put our John Hancock there as well as a witness. But yeah, it's a legally binding agreement between the two of you, overseen by us through the process. We yeah, we contract the logging is the big thing, which is yeah, start to finish, from the sale being bid out to out there monitoring when the sale is being cut, make sure they're cutting what they're supposed to, they're taking care of the site. As the loads are being delivered, we're monitoring the scale going to the different mills and what the rates are, and taking care of making sure that the landowner's getting paid the correct rates for all the different products being removed. And then at the end of the day, it's checking out the site and making sure were they up to that contract spec. Are the roads cleaned up? Is the slash left in an acceptable manner? Is everybody happy with everything? Yeah, and then looking at closing it out and getting everybody paid.
Yeah, so really you should reach out to us if you're considering any of our services, but since you might have already have a plan, you could send it to us, email us your plan so we can we are certified plan writers with the DNR, so we do a lot of work with the managed forest law program. So people have a management plan for that, and then they have mandatory forest practices that they need to implement. So we are there to help them through that process, just like we would with the Wisconsin Stewardship Plan project. Granted, the practices that are in your plans aren't mandatory, but we're there to assist with that process. And then the project timelines. So if it's a timber sale project, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, timber sale projects can range from 2 to 4 years, honestly. It depends on whether it's summer operable or winter, and where that fits with our schedule and contractor availability. If it's summer ground and it's on, as in it's sand and well drained, and it's on the side of a state highway, we might be able to get it done for you in the next year. but if it's a winter restricted harvest, increasingly those contracts are too, and they could be longer than that, just kind of depending on the species mix that's out there and the ground and the suitability for harvest in all those seasons.
Great.
Yeah, that's all I have. Any other, as we can answer questions at the end. I'm gonna keep moving.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna pass it to Anthony and hope this works. And then we can ask some questions at the end.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. My name is Anthony Reinish, owner of Reinish Forestry, small forest consulting firm in East Central Wisconsin. Usually, I have between 2 and 4 or 5 employees, depending just how things are going. We cover Outagamie, Shawano, Wapaka, Waushara, Portage. Get a little bit into Marathon and Lang Lake counties. So that's our general coverage area. So as consulting foresters, we're certified plan writers, but even we work with a number of landowners that are outside of the MFL program. So it's as kind of the things been going here. You want to, as many of you have, a plan. So plan your work your plan. So we do timber administration as well, which involves marking the timber. I'll try not to go over what some of the other speakers already said. Our fees, we do a per acre marking rate, and then when it comes to adminning, how we admin at a per hour rate. But again, that's just something we would discuss if it was something that you wanted to contract with us. Obviously, any logger that we would recommend using for a timber harvest, we would check their proof of insurance, and then we also collect a performance bond from them just to ensure that again at the end everything wraps up well and closes up well. All the roads are back in good condition. I'd like to reiterate as well, when it comes to a timber harvest, those projects, you just never know. In our neck of the woods here, yeah, I mean, it could be within a few months that cutting happens, but it might be 2 to 4 or even more years. This past winter, we had some sales that have been sitting there for 6 years. And it's just a lot of it was location, low ground, need the weather to work out. So that's probably just one thing I can't stress enough to landowners, that depending on what kind of timber you have and the location of your property, that harvest may take longer than what you think it's going to take. But in setting up management plans and the timber harvest, then we also do invasive species control. And quite often when we are implementing, we are certified applicators. So when we're doing the invasive species control, we're usually doing it in conjunction with a regeneration harvest, whether it's a oak regeneration, but somewhere where it's inundated. In our area, we get a lot of Japanese barberry, common buckthorn, autumn olive. Some of those might sound familiar to you. So our goal is to get out ahead of time and treat those, get them to a point of control before we open up the stand, open up the sunlight, and give our native trees and vegetation a chance to compete. Along with that, we also install deer fences. So fences to keep deer out of an area, especially in Wapaka, Shawano counties, those areas. Some areas have very high deer populations. And if you're, being landowners yourselves, maybe you do this or know somebody. When I'm hearing landowners talk about putting fencing around food plots, that the deer don't eat all their food, all the food plot before they get to the fall. Well, we're doing the same thing, except we're trying to protect the trees, and we're trying to keep the deer off of trees so that they can grow. You got a tree this big, in small buds, it only takes a few deer and a 40 to nip off all those buds, and it makes it hard for the trees to come back. So we'll put up a deer fence. Now, in just talking about deer fencing and invasive control, landowners we work with will quite often will help them apply to either the Wisconsin Forest Landowner Grant Program, the acronym is WIFLGAP. That's obviously through the DNR, that's cost share program through the DNR, 50/50 cost share. And then I believe as mentioned earlier, there is the Natural Resources Conservation Service. That's a federal agency. They have a program called EQIP, which is the Environmental Quality Incentive Program. And landowners there can get a at least for invasives, they can get a per acre cost share rate on treating invasives. They can also get cost share on the deer fencing, that is per linear foot that the cost share would be. Well, and I guess one thing to recap there on deer fencing, when we install deer fences, that's how we charge is per linear foot. When we charge for treating invasives, we'll come out and take a look at it. You just never know. Every site's a little different, depending on what is there, what species is there, the density, the size of it. That's going to affect what our overall estimate is to the landowner. And then when we treat invasives, put up deer fencing, we all have separate agreements. We have separate agreements for each one of those services. And we lay out the pricing in there. So it's straightforward with the landowner. And again, checking, as was already stated, checking references is a great thing to do. So we do these, we implement these practices not only on landowners we're working with, but other foresters will call us and will assist landowners that we're not dealing with directly as consulting foresters. So let me check my question list here real quick. I think I'll wrap up here, but as far as contacting any one of the foresters that you're listening to or a forester in your area, the sooner the better. There's never a bad time to call them and start the planning process, because it is a process. When you're talking about your woods and for many of you, I'm sure it's something that it's a legacy to you. The more time you can start planning and get the process going, the better. So I don't want to rehash too many things that other people said, but that's kind of the services that we do and how we can provide them.
Great, thank you. So we have plenty of time for questions. Feel free to unmute and ask the question, or if you feel more comfortable, you can type it in the chat. If you have it for one particular person, great, or if it's just a general question that everyone can kind of weigh in on, that works too. So does anyone have any questions?
I thought for sure Trent would have a question. Trent and I are old colleagues.
Hey there, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
What is the timeline for these plans? So, for example, say I get my forestry plan written up. Do I have to have this accomplished in the next year, or is there a possibility to wait a year or 2 or 3?
It should be right. I mean, if you already have a plan, maybe the practice is scheduled for a certain year, right? Do you currently have a stewardship plan, Jordan?
So someone came out and they walked the property. I'm just waiting for him to come back with it.
Okay.
So I assume in his plan, he'll write up deadlines and target dates
Yeah.
for me.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Yeah.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Mm-hmm. And for us, that's a discussion between the landowner and ourselves. We don't just uh, throw a dart and say, "Hey, this needs to be managed in this year or else." It's um, when would you like to see it managed within reason? There's a lot of flexibility out there. Some things are like, for example, ash is if you got a lot of ash, it's really good to get that cleaned up yesterday if you can. But if you have longer lived trees that don't have a lot of disease pressure and they're just maybe a little overstocked, then we can look at waiting a few years.
Yeah, I mean, when we're writing plans that we're talking to you about your goals and objectives and incorporating them into the plan as far as timelines and really the treatments that you want to implement. So I thought it was interesting listening to Evan and Anthony just about what you said, Evan, about fire. We don't do prescribed fire, but that could be a practice that a landowner could benefit from. So just thinking about that and adding it to a potential, as a potential practice for a landowner to implement along with, you could also get the same results or try to do something like that with a timber sale or,
Mm-hmm.
um,
so
Yeah.
based off that, I just have one quick additional question. So I got my property walked about 2 months ago, and I'm still waiting for the plan. Is that typical, or should I be getting results soon here with that?
So with us, the plan writer has until December 1 to get the plan done. So, but many of our foresters do get them done faster than that. So it might be a bit, or they might be able to get it soon. It just kind of depends on the forester's work schedule. You can always reach out to them and just see, hey, how's it going? Is there anything else you need from me? If you think that would be helpful.
All right, thank you.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, the other
I'll,
thing
Just to,
too,
I'll jump
I was
in.
just gonna say, as far as writing the plan and then we submit it to the DNR and they actually have 45 days to review it. So it's it it could take a little bit
Thank you
longer just because of
for
that
that
too.
reminder.
Yeah.
And then Evan.
I was just going to point out that, I believe the plans, those are due June 1. So they might be prioritizing those before the stewardship plans. So that might be a question to ask them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. And I was going to add, when you talk about different parts of that plan, that's where landowner involvement really comes in. If you're going to contract out every part of your management plan, you may be looking at spreading that cost out over a longer period of time. Whereas if you're doing some of that work yourself, you might be able to accelerate that timeline a little bit as well. So definitely something to take into consideration.
So we did have a question in the chat. If I only have 6 acres, is it okay to contact a contractor?
It
I would
never
say
hurts. You never
100%.
know.
Okay,
Yeah.
why don't we do Evan and then Heritage?
Sounds
Sorry.
good. Yeah, being that we're not foresters, we work on a lot smaller of properties typically. I have clients who have a quarter acre in the city of Madison, and I have clients who have 640 acres in the drift list. So, from a native habitat perspective, every little bit counts. So, be it a quarter acre, be it 6 acres, be it 600 acres, any little bit that you can do to manage your corner of the world will make it all a better place. So that's where I'm coming from in it. And even if the contractor isn't the one doing the work, if you're getting some solid advice, I'd say that's a win in its own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you never know. We might have some other work in the area or can string that together. We personally we live on 7 acres. We got it logged because the neighbor has 30 and it all needed doing at the same time. So that's how we were able to string that together. But yeah, jobs like that, we're always looking for opportunities with adjacent landowners. So if you know your neighbors or don't, now's a good time too.
Yeah, that's, I think, a really good point is that for some folks that have smaller properties, sometimes getting kind of a group together that is in the same area can help you get that work done.
Mhm.
And so another question was, how far is it that you will typically travel?
So it for us it depends on the kind of work we're doing. If it's, I mean, if it's a managed forest lot plan, we can really do those anywhere. But typically our working circles within a couple hours, the home office here in Cable, Wisconsin. So northwest corner of the state, the carbon stuff can pull us coast to coast. Timber sales, that's a good thing to keep pretty local and stay yeah, within that couple hour radius to just have eyes on the job and the contractor and yeah, maximize landowner revenue on it, minimize our portion of expenses.
Yeah, for myself, what we do, as I stated when I initially started, this East Central Wisconsin is about where we will stay. Once we start getting outside of that, because of doing different services, it starts interfering. We're traveling 2-3 hours away, so we're usually trying to stay within an hour, maybe a little more travel distance.
Yeah, we're typically traveling probably within about 2 hours in the Madison area. And that's where property size really does make a difference. If I'm traveling 2 hours to manage 6 acres, that's a lot different than traveling 2 hours to manage 40 acres. From a cost perspective on the client's end as well, that travel time costs something as well. And you can often find somebody to manage, 6 acres a lot closer. That's going to be a lot more cost effective for yourself as an individual. So we often advise clients on that if
Mhm.
we get leads that far out. We know people in other areas of the state to kind of recommend you to and push you towards their services.
Yeah, same here in the traditional forestry side. We're one big small family, so we all kind of work together. And if something might not be a good fit for us, we'd be sure to point you in the right direction who we think could better serve you.
Great. I think those are the questions in the chat. It looks like Trent has your hand raised. Go ahead.
Thanks. Hopefully you guys can hear me here. All right.
Yeah.
In the preliminary stages right now of working with one of the federal organizations on doing some um, oak savanna type restoration on our property. And I was a little bit taken aback in the early conversations when we were talking about cost sharing and some of the work that needed to be done and the portions that we wanted to contract out. Um, the individual I was talking to said, well, we've got certain contractors that we work with that we want to continue to do that with. And I said, well, I have some contractors to do portions of this work that I've worked with before in trust and would like them to be involved with that in lieu of their folks. And that seemed a little bit awkward. And I'm just wondering, on those federal programs, how often, that kind of plays in with the organization choosing the contractors versus the customer, the client.
Yeah, I can speak to that. But implement a lot of equip projects, and in in the Dane County area, we don't really see that a whole lot, but um, it should be up to the individual landowner who they're going to work with. You know, there are certain, say, if you want EQIP funding for stewardship practices, you have to have a forest management plan in place that has been written by a TSP. But a lot of the management services don't need to be by anybody on a TSP list. So you theoretically can use whoever you want to do those services. So I would definitely, you know, if you've been working with somebody, you have a good relationship with somebody, I would definitely, you know, make that clear, and it shouldn't count against you in your EQIP or CSP application.
Anthony, I saw you unmute. Did you want to add anything or you good? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We did have another question in the chat. Do you ever collaborate with organizations such as Ducks Unlimited as an example?
Specifically Ducks Unlimited too much in forestry, but yeah, there's always a bunch of stakeholders that are interested in yeah ways we can adapt the forest to maximize different wildlife or ecological benefits. So yeah, we're always interested in incorporating that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's where your comment before that, you know, say you only own 7 acres or you only own 6 acres, where, you know, a habitat type doesn't end at your property line. You know, things extend far beyond your property. So working with other organizations, other landowners, whoever it may be, to do good work on a larger scale is always of benefit. And a lot of organizations like Ducks Unlimited or Pheasants Forever, um, they really smile upon, you know, collaboration between landowners. If there's multiple stakeholders working together on something, they are more likely to fund a project or support it. So that's always a good thing to keep in mind.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Go ahead, Trent.
Is there much of a market in the state for biomass if your trees aren't really worthwhile for pulp or timber?
Depends on where you are. Biomass is usually pretty close to the source or the mill taking it. Usually, too, there's also just a handful of contractors that have those contracts with the mill to deliver it. In and of itself, I'd say probably no, not. If that's the only thing you got, it's just submerged small diameter timber. You said it wasn't good for pulp or saw timber. Not really.
Yeah,
It's a niche
I
market.
agree. Yeah, that's for sure. I would agree with that. Niche market at best.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Mhm.
So we did have a comment from somebody. I wish I knew about the timber sales service sooner. We have some logging completed last year and are not happy with how the slash was left. I guess maybe could you all talk a little bit about how you try to help landowners, you know, accomplish their goals and kind of prevent stuff like that when you're working with contractors and loggers?
Yes, we just have a
Sorry.
spec in the contract
Oh.
regarding, sorry, Anthony, but regarding slash height and just yeah, we'd like it kept below this certain height, and usually there's several machines in there that are tramping it down and keeping it low. So between that and the cutting and processing it up, it's kept manageable. Yeah, we also do work with contractors who utilize biomass. So if guys want a really, really clean site, then that's another way to get it.
Mhm.
in our area, again, referring to Wapaka County, Shawano County, where we have real high deer populations, actually leaving slash and maybe leaving it a little bit higher is something that we do try to promote, just to give some of the new tree seedlings some protection. So, slash, loggers, one thing I always like to remind landowners is loggers are not forest beautifiers. They're not there to yank all, at least where we're at, they're not going to yank all the slash out with them. It does seem to be a common thought that landowners have, is that when a timber harvest happens, not only are your logs and your pulp going to get taken out, but then all the tops are going to get dealt with as well. Those are going to stay out there, but ecologically, that's very, very beneficial to the forest. A lot of microorganisms and other organisms, salamanders and such, need some of that. Some of that's going to break down and go back into the soil for soil nutrients. So to have some slash there is okay. Now, with saying that, obviously, there, to a trained eye, you can tell when somebody went through and just did not do a very good job harvesting practices and did a poor job with the slash, versus where somebody, even though it was, there's slash out there, it was still done in a manageable way. So I don't know if that helps you there, but do understand that it's not a bad thing to have slash on the ground, but at the same time, we understand that we want to keep it manageable, keep it off the road. If that makes sense.
Yeah, really good point there, Anthony. Thanks for adding that. We have a lot of landowners we work with too, increasingly, that want more wildlife benefit. And yeah, 100% opposite of what we just discussed. Let's leave the tops intact and everything really, really messy. And yeah, there's a benefit to that as well, in terms of protecting regeneration, giving more wildlife cover, and you name it.
So we have one last question in the chat, and I think this is going to be our last one because we're getting close to 7:30. But it's I have a plan written already, and I'm in the process of getting approved for CSP. Do you have any advice or steps that I need to be aware of in the next month to make sure that this is accepted and things are moving forward? Do you want to go ahead, Evan? Or sorry, Anthony, go ahead. Whoever.
Yeah, I can jump on right away. My biggest piece of advice would be to just be in contact with your person over at NRCS, whoever you're working through. Sometimes there are some practices that, if included, make your CSP or EQIP applications a little bit more desirable and kind of help move you up their ranking scale. So the more that you can kind of reach out and talk with your NRCS provider and get some of that insight, it helps to show your commitment to the project too. So don't hesitate to reach out and be like, hey, take a look at this application, and is there anything that I could put on it that will make it look better? There's no harm in asking that question, so don't be afraid to.
Anthony?
No, he covered it well.
Awesome. Well, it is 7:29, so I think we're gonna wrap up. I just wanted to say thank you all for coming, and a special thank you to our speakers. It was great to hear, from folks in different areas of the state and that offer different types of services. So yeah, thank you all for being here.